Hey guys, doing some more work on the test bike. Ran into some more problems after I put the wheel back on from doing the phase wires out. Well, originally I thought it was the wiring harness, but it's not apparently. Well, I'll show you what I did anyway. I'll go through what I did. I hooked the wheel up, checked the timing, plugged in the hulls for the timing, wired it all up, and started it up and give it a little bit of gas, and the motor spun 3 or 4 times and stopped, and then it wouldn't go again. So I'm thinking, okay, maybe it's the timing, because I was thinking it was the timing. So I changed the phase wires, give it some more gas, nothing, totally dead stick. So I'd say a good half hour working on the bike, trying to figure out what was going on, all the wiring and everything else. And I put the tester on my throttle, dead again. That's 2 throttles this bike's gone through. I went and tested the positive lead on the throttle to ground, and I get this. So there's definitely a short somewhere. And I'm thinking somewhere in the wiring harness there's a high voltage lead coming off the battery that's shorting to the frame, and it's sending a surge up into the throttle, blowing the throttle. That was my first guess. But what I did is I unplugged the throttle connector from the wiring harness and plugged a brand new one right directly into the controller, thinking that was the problem. Same thing, it spun the wheel for a second and died. I tested the throttle and it was dead again. So now it's 3 throttles I've gone through with this bike, and now it's just getting irritating. I'm probably going to end up ripping all the wire out of this bike. I've had it with the wiring in this thing. I'm going to rewire the high voltage and the low voltage, and I'm going to separate the low voltage wires, and the regulator will be sitting back here with the rest of the junk. Set it up in the front, and all this wiring here will go. It's terrible. But anyway, so somewhere in that controller there's a dead short. But the thing that gets me, if it's blowing the throttle, wouldn't it also blow the hulls in the wheel? Because I've tested the hulls in the wheel and they're fine. It's only taking out the throttle, which is kind of weird because they're fed off the same 5 volts, same regulator. So there might be a Zener diode in there somewhere that's separating the two. Maybe one of the diodes are dead. Don't know. All I know is it's shorting the ground, and that controller is just blowing anything up you plug into it. So I'm thinking it's done. I'm not even going to bother trying to repair it. But I did order a new one. I got a one with Bluetooth. It's got a bunch of settings. It's a 72 volt, 1500 watts at 80 to 120 amp. So it should be interesting what damage I can do with that. And when that comes in, we'll make another video and hook it up and maybe take a few test rides, play around with the software. And by then I should have it rewired properly. Like, this thing was running great until I ran into this problem again. So I've pretty much gone through almost 4 throttles on this bike. Luckily they're all easy. They're easy to replace, the hulls inside. With these ones here, there's a little door, and you remove the hot glue and the hull just drops out, so it's pretty easy to repair. You don't have to take it apart. So I figured I'd share that with you. When the new controller comes in, I'll make another video and we'll do some review on it. Later, guys. I figured I'd take you guys along with me and pull this thing apart. Took it off the bike. So here's the part. Okay, make sure you get tone. Now here's the wires for the hulls. The positive on that, which is right here, to ground. Nothing. But if I take the throttle and I go positive to ground, that's what's been blowing up my my throttle. So we're gonna open it up, see if we can figure out what it is that's doing this. I've never run into this before, and I've also never blew up 4 throttles in concession, so I'm interested to find out what this is. I know I'm never going to use this controller again. This was a pretty irritating problem to have. And yet, well, I can't complain too much. It could have left me dead on the street walking the bike home, but it never did. It's only when you disturb the wiring. Find out in a minute. If I had to guess, I was overvolting it, so I'm guessing likely could be a hot blob of solder has melted and wandered onto the board. It could be the case. There we go. See anywhere in the case where I'd be shorting out. No black marks. Get our magnifying glass going here. 4.2 volts right off the board there. Power, no, I don't see anything. No puffy caps or anything. These things actually survived pretty well overvolted, except for that issue with the throttle. Let's see if we can follow the wire to the board, see where it leads us. Let me find the where it's hooked up to the board, and I'll bring. Okay, this is probably the first controller I've actually worked on where the 5 volts or the 4.2 volts coming out is separate from the hulls for the wheel. So if I do a tone test here on the board right here, see that right there, that's 4.2 volts. So if I go off of that and I touch there, that's for the wheel, okay? But if I go off the throttle, I got nothing. So if I go over here, there's the throttle there, and that's totally separate from the 4.2 volts that's powering the hulls for the wheel. So I'm guessing maybe it's because of the EBIKes on this controller, but the throttle is on a separate circuit than the rear hulls on the wheel. So if I was to tie the throttle into the same supply as the rear, I probably have no problem with this controller again. But I want to follow this and see exactly where it goes, because that's really weird that they would have them separate like that. Okay, well, I followed the trace for the positive on the throttle, and it goes all the way along the board and goes right to the pick, which through a resistor here, which I totally don't get. Obviously, it probably has something to do with EBIKes, where the pick is powering the throttle. I'll never know. I mean, it should be tied directly with the hulls for the wheel. It's the same 4.2 volts. So, yeah, I'll probably make another video. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna clip it, and I'm gonna tie it directly into the same supply as the rear of the wheel, and we'll set it up on the bench here and see if I can resurrect this thing. But that's a weird flaw on this controller. I still don't get why it's like that. But anyway, well, it doesn't look like we'll need another video, guys. I figured out what it was. When this was assembled, they pinched the wire for the throttle cable against the casing, and it was basically shorting to the casing, which would make the whole bike frame live at 4.2 volts. So somewhere, since everything on the bike shares the common ground, somewhere on the bike there actually is a short on the wiring harness, and when it shorts the ground, it was sending more than 4.2 volts up to the throttle, which would kill the throttle. I don't think it's killed the controller yet, but we'll fix that problem there, and then we'll have to run some tests on it. But that is the problem right there. Later, guys.